Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council public meeting for Tuesday, September 19th. We have quorum, so we'll get started at 7:30. The first thing, I just need to read a public hearing statement. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city of Richmond Hill in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment and/or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council to the local planning appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. That's just like poetry. It's a beautiful verse. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I need a motion. Councillor Silovitz, second, Councillor Davidson. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Okay, nobody's pecuniary interested. That's fine. Scheduled business. We have one application tonight and one delegation. So the application is for 9712 Yonge Street and 9712 Yonge Street. And we will hear from our staff planner, which I believe is Mr. Jeff Healy. And then we will hear from the applicant. Just so everybody knows, actually, if there is anybody in the audience that would like to speak to council, you're welcome to do so after the applicant and our staff planner speaks. Just for those in the audience or at home, meetings, council public meeting is not a meeting designed for us to make any final decisions. It is a meeting under the Planning Act whereby feedback from the public and feedback from council can be heard about a planning application. Okay, so the motion that we will be moving later tonight will be a motion to receive all comments and refer them back to staff, but not to approve or not approve an application. So Mr. Healy, the floor is yours. Enlighten us as to what we're dealing with tonight.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor West, members of council and the public. Tonight's item involves a proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications for the lands known as 9712 Yonge Street. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the west side of Yonge Street, north of May Avenue, and has a total lot area of approximately 0.39 hectares or just under an acre in size. The land support an existing one-story commercial building, which is proposed to be demolished to facilitate the proposed development. Abutting land uses include existing commercial uses to the north, Yonge Street to the east and beyond, which is an existing one-story commercial plaza. May Avenue to the south and beyond, which is a current gas station, which contains a development proposal for a high-rise mixed-use residential commercial development. And existing single detached dwellings to the west. The lands are designated regional mixed-use corridor in the city's official plan, and the regional mixed-use corridor designation is intended to provide a broad range of mix of land uses in a compact and pedestrian-friendly, transit-oriented built form. In terms of zoning, the lands are zoned general commercial 1 zone under bylaw 2523 is amended. That supports the existing commercial building on the lands, and the applicant is proposing to rezone the lands to multiple residential 10 zone to the proposed development and implement site-specific development standards on the lands. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit a high-rise mixed-use residential commercial development on its land holdings. The proposed development is to be comprised of a one tower proposed at 24 stories in height with a 6-story podium to contain 341 residential units. It includes a floor space index currently of 6.09 FSI and provides at-grade commercial uses fronting Yonge Street. The interim condition that you see here on your screen is I say it as interim because primary access is proposed to be provided from May Avenue. as an interim condition. Next slide, please. And the ultimate condition that's shown here is to provide a future access from an access point onto Addison to a proposed Addison Street extension once that street is constructed in the future. Next slide, please. And the purpose of this report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal. And it's instructed for information purposes with a recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Healy. And for the applicant, Mr. Adam Layton from Evans Planning.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Jeff did a wonderful job laying out the context, so I think we can skip through to slide 3. As indicated, the property is on Yonge Street at the intersection with May Avenue. The context, obviously a wide variety of uses, high transit availability, a number of parks and other uses in the area. Moving on to the next slide, which demonstrates that the subject property is within the Weldrick BRT station major transit station area with a planned minimum density of 200 people and jobs per hectare. Moving on to the next slide, we have proposed development statistics. As indicated, it's a mixed-use building with 24 stories, approximately 845 square meters of non-residential floor area at grade facing onto Yonge Street. There would also be 341 apartment dwelling units with a mix consisting primarily of 1 and 2 bedroom and some 3 bedroom units. The proposed FSI is 6.09 based on the gross lot area. And a parking supply of about 337 spaces and 94 bike parking spaces. The next slide demonstrates the applications, and specifically the official plan amendment seeks to permit increased height to 24 stories, a maximum base building height of 6 stories instead of 4, maximum density of 6.2 FSI to just leave a little flexibility there in case for construction errors, and to allow the encroachment into the angular plane above the 20th story. In discussions with my client and in reviewing the staff report, we're actually going to potentially eliminate that requirement and look at terracing the tower to bring it outside of the angular plane. The zoning bylaw, as indicated by Jeff, also would seek to apply an appropriate zone category to permit site-specific development standards and uses. The next slide shows a colored site plan in context. We've also ghosted in the proposed building massing for the developments at 9750 Yonge to the north and 9700 Yonge to the south to demonstrate the built form that could potentially result along Yonge Street. And I think this shows how a consistent street wall would be created and also wrapping around the May Avenue frontage and also the future extension of Addison Avenue. Moving on to the next slide, that is one item that we should discuss. There is presently an EA being initiated to facilitate and design and plan the future extension of Addison Avenue from its current terminus. We have done a preliminary assessment through this proposal to determine what potential alignment may impact the property, just to ensure that we're able to accommodate it and not preclude the ability to extend the street. In this regard, we've shown a potential road widening, and of course, we'll participate in the EA process as it moves forward. This also shows a potential widening along Yonge Street and at the intersection in the daylight triangle. The next slide is probably of primary interest. This just shows the ground floor, and it generally colors the uses to demonstrate how the different residential lobby, commercial area, servicing, and amenity spaces meet the ground floor and activate the public realm. As indicated by Jeff, it is contemplated that in the fullness of time, once the extension of Addison Avenue goes forward, the access would be removed from May Avenue. The boulevard would be vegetated, the parking may be realigned, potentially converted to amenity space, and the driveway would instead go out to Addison Avenue. And then just on the following slides, we do have just some conceptual renderings of the proposed development. Again, right now, we're still very much at the massing stage with just looking at, principles of built form, but this demonstrates, potential how it could be massed. So we have a view looking at the elevation along Yonge Street on this slide. The next slide puts the building in a little bit more of a context, looking south. So you'll see the proposed massing of the Elm development at 9700 Yonge Street on the south. Focusing in on the next slide a little closer to demonstrate the interaction of the building lobby with the intersection of the public realm at May and Yonge. The building has been set back to both recognize the prominence of the intersection and provide a little bit more openness and what I would call a privately owned public space, opportunities for that. And then finally, the next slide demonstrates the potential built form along May Avenue, which would consist of the podium, amenity space at grade along the west side of the site, transitioning to commercial space as one nears Yonge Street. That concludes my presentation, right on time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Layton. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak at this time? No. Okay, seeing none. All right, so this is an issue that is located in Ward 5. So I'll bring this to the local councillor, Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Adam, for your presentations. I want to thank staff for this excellent staff report, and to our members in the audience. I imagine you're the landowners. Is that correct? Very nice to meet you. Please come and get a business card from me afterwards, and I would gladly sit with you and have further discussions with you, with Adam. It'll be my pleasure. So I believe that we are really at the very beginning of this, and there's still a lot more discussion that has to take place. And I have had those discussions with Adam as well as with Sandra and Jeff. So what concerns me is the infiltration of traffic into May. Should there only be that entrance, egress, ingress from May, because Addison Street, of course, doesn't exist yet, and there's houses there. So I am concerned about the amount of traffic that would come out of the development onto May. It's going to go right and it's going to go left. And there will definitely be concerns from residents as to how that traffic is going to bleed through the neighborhood should it go right. So we need to look at that very carefully. I just wanted to say that specifically. In general, I think that the proposed built asset in front of us is basically too big, too large, too high. And that's what needs to be finessed through greater discussion. If you look at page 4 of the staff report, which is page 8 consecutive page 8 of 57, under the official planning and zoning bylaw amendment applications, there are 4 bullet points there, which are prudent to the matter at hand. So, is the density too great? Is the FSI too great? Yes. Is the height too high? Absolutely, because it absolutely must not break the 45-degree angular plane. So that has to be looked at. I appreciate what Adam was saying. I'd like to see a 4-story podium, not a 6-story podium. It helps as it moves down into the neighborhood. It aesthetically looks better. And I believe, just going through my notes, my apologies. Oh, yes. And my other big concern is the lot coverage, which is 50%, which is way too high. So I think that's basically the problem. Everything put together just shows a concept that is too great, too high, too tall, too dense. And then if you look at page 10 of the staff report, pages 10 and 11, consecutive pages 14 and 15 of 57, under development planning division, all those bullet points that have been notated by staff, I agree with. So should there be this type of development on this corner? Absolutely. It's a regional transit corridor, and this is where intensification must occur. But are we there yet? No, we're not. So I know that through continued discussions, I have no doubt that we will continue to move forward. And I look forward to having those discussions. We didn't have a residents meeting on this. I have not received any communications from any residents, and that's a good thing. So, you know, you can get a lot of communication from people who are very, very worried. But I never got that in this particular case. So that's a good thing on many levels. But I know that were there to be a discussion about this, it would all be the same thing. Come down in height, come down in density, reduce your footplate and your lot coverage, and let's go to 4 stories, please, not 6. And let's give a very hard thought to the infiltration of traffic from this site into May and what it will mean to the people, the residents who currently live there. It's going to be a bit difficult, especially if across the road from you, that one comes to 4 as well. So thank you very much for coming here this evening. I'll gladly move the staff recommendations and all comments back to staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. And the next person to speak and probably will second the motion is Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, yes, I would like to second the motion to refer all comments back to staff. And I do want to echo pretty much everything that Councillor Silovitz has said here. She's certainly picked up on everything that I think is pertinent to this application. I do want to get a little bit of clarification perhaps from staff here. On slide 5 of the staff presentation, I think that it was actually showing the angular plane line, and I think it was hitting somewhere around 20th floor. And I believe that the applicant and their delegation indicated that they felt that they'd be able to address this through terracing of the tower. So perhaps we could just get a little more clarification as to what exactly that means.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, terracing, basically the floor plates on all those floors that are impacted would be reduced in size to actually meet the angular plane as it's measured from the neighborhood designation to the west. So as you go up higher, you have a consistent floor plate size, and then they would be shrunk accordingly to match the angular plane.
And that's good information to know. The other thing that really jumped out at me in this entire thing was the FSI. So, you know, if we're looking at 2.5 and we're going to 6.2, I think that's going to be a very, very hard sell. So those are my main comments. I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next person up is Regional Local Councillor DePaulo.
Thank you, Mayor West. I just my initial comments on this application. My concern, like the ward councillors, is the 6-story podium. Now, I'm not an architect, but I don't understand why the tower would be that narrow and the podium so large, and why it wouldn't be a 3 or 4-story podium, and you know, the tower could stretch further back, you know, under 15 stories toward the west, you know, and still achieve the same number of units and all of that. So there must be economic reasons for the design, but that's what I would prefer to see. We hope to achieve a human scale as you go down Yonge Street. When you're looking at a 3 or 4-story podium, it's not as daunting for a pedestrian. You know, in some cases, you know, in an urban area, you're not even aware of the tower that sits up in behind you. You're just conscious of that podium height, and the 6-story height is, you know, it really doesn't matter if it's 6 or 15 or 25. You're walking right beside a very tall building, and that's obvious, and you're conscious of it, and it's just not the same street feel for pedestrians. So that's a concern of mine. Other than that, this part of Yonge Street, the west side of Yonge Street from May Avenue North, really lends well to addressing Yonge Street with density, in a way that's not so harmful or impactful to the residents on the west. Unlike further south on Yonge or the east side of Yonge Street, it's great to have that street in behind. I know it's a challenge for our transportation people to create that street the full length from Major Mac to May and beyond, but that's ideally how you would want to intensify a major corridor like Yonge Street and to keep the traffic off of Yonge and to a laneway in behind or accesses to these buildings. And I know that'll be achieved further north on Yonge. And I like the approach that the access can be changed once the conditions change. We are to be successful in gaining that road allowance. So that's my comments, Mr. Mayor. Other than that, this is the appropriate place for high density. I hope there's a willingness on the part of this applicant to begin construction once they've gone through the process. They've got a lot of work to do with the local councillor and the neighbors, perhaps reducing height, perhaps reducing massing. But this is where Richmond Hill needs to grow, and we need to reach our unit target, and we need to do it in the next 3 to 5 years, ideally. So if this applicant is serious about building, then I look forward to working with them to get something on this site that's works for the community and delivers those much needed new housing units. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next person is Councillor Tree.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I do have a few questions. The first one regarding to the current condition of May Street. I know this is the only one line now. From a city perspective, is there any plan to expand it from current one line to 2 lines to support more traffic?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the best of my knowledge, there are no plans to expand May Avenue. It's not a collector road. It would stay in its current condition or widened as according to the region's plans for Yonge Street.
Yonge Street, I think we are good. I don't have questions. I'm just concerned about the May Street because the entry of this new plan will be on the May Street. So we don't have any plan from a city perspective to expand the May Street, right?
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the best of my knowledge, there are no plans at this time.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it. My second question regarding to the angular 45 degrees. If you look at that slide at the bottom one, so there is a starting point. I just want to see the bottom one from starting point is on the edge of the current property or is on the edge of the new road, future road from that edge, the start point. Where is the start point from? It's on the slide 5. You can bring this one. Yes, the starting point. So this edge at the left corner of this bottom one, where is that location from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it currently, the way it's being shown, it is from the current termination of their property line, their western property line.
Okay, thank you so much. So on my third question regarding the future road. So I saw there the future road being built up. If we approve a certain of this plan, what is timeline to build up that new road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the actual timelines. I don't believe that road is on the 10-year capital plan or anything like that. At this time, there's an environmental assessment process that is being gone through. And once that is completed and a definitive road alignment is established, that will then go through the standard process for building the road.
Okay, I have another question from another entry from Yonge Street. I see we have commercial area there. So is there any designs in future? We're gonna have a different entries from Yonge Street going to this area.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the way the plan is currently contemplated, there would be no vehicular access at all from Yonge Street whatsoever as part of this proposal. It is temporary or interim access, full moves from May, and then eventually it would come from the new extension road at the rear.
Okay, from my understanding, currently there are some entries from Yonge Street for the restaurant. And I'm assuming this building maybe built up 1 or 2 years. In that case, all the business will be no more business because entry will be headache, right? And my last question is a technical one. I just want to understand from this report, we're mentioning, just give me a second. Yeah, the minimum front yard setback, that one list here is 0.75 meters. I'm trying to understand, is that from the new planned property line to Yonge Street sidewalk? Is that 0.75? Or what's the definition of 0.75? For me, if I walk in there, that might be too close to the building. Is
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that I believe that's the setback from the ultimate property line that's being proposed. We have had other buildings recently that have had a 0 setback. So, but that doesn't take into account the boulevard that would be there, which is quite large under the region's widening it with the bus rapid way. So you would not see the building right on the road. There would still be a sidewalk and a boulevard.
okay? I'm just concerned if this is too close sidewalk and there's just along Yonge Street, that's going to be very, very sharp to look at from bottom of the building. That is all my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, looking at map 6, which it says is your ultimate goal, I don't see any green here. I see a lot of asphalt, a lot of concrete, and with climate change, I think big cities around the world are learning even small pockets of trees and grass and greenery make a huge difference in terms of creating a heat sponge rather than creating something that absorbs heat all day and then emits it all night. And I really want to see something more environmentally friendly than this. I also have no idea, especially on map 6, where you're going to put snow. There's a teeny tiny spot there. I know in Ward 1, condominium areas, whether they're buildings or, stacked or they're townhouses, they're storing snow in public areas, and that's unacceptable. So I don't see where you're going to put snow on this map 6. Also, I don't see a lot of area for the residents to recreate. It's, like I said, a lot of asphalt and concrete, and I would hope you would reconsider making it more environmentally friendly because we're past the point of needing that. And I'd also like to ask the bottom floor, since it was zoned for commercial, are there any plans to make it storefronts or something that's otherwise convenient for residents so they don't have to go too far? I know we probably don't know that at this point, but for me, that makes a community walkable. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you so much. Regional Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff, for presentation. And thank you for the applicant's planner. And I mostly would be making comments because that's a motion. I have a comments back to staff for consideration. I might have a question in the end. But thank you for the applicant for putting in the application. I'm looking at the elevation. It looks okay to me. I guess the challenge is also whether a nice looking architectural design building is actually in the right place, given the context. I think that's what it comes down to. I understand my colleagues are already talking about height and about the other aspects as well, so I'm not going to touch on it. It's already on the books in terms of comments. I did note that it haven't been referred to yet. Maybe that's the value I try to add on is that, particularly on page 10, based on the staff report, there's some significant concern. It's a significant that caught my attention. So the applicant and the applicant's plan may want to pay attention to it. A concern is a concern, but it's significant. That means you should pay much more attention. It's about the proposed setback of 0 meters and towards the end of page 10. And specifically, that staff are recommending to have it appropriate setback more in keeping with setbacks on property with typical high-rise development. So that prompts me a question for Mr. Chair, perhaps it's to staff. What would be considered as appropriate setbacks, the range, and maybe relate to that, what is considered typical high-rise development? 24-story, is that typical? To you, Mr. Chair. So it's actually two questions, two in one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There isn't a typical setback that I can give the counselor as a minimum dimension. We would be looking for enough of a dimension as a setback to allow for maintenance and that type of thing. And we would work with the applicant to try and achieve that. So that's something that we would continue to discuss with them. Sometimes, there are situations where you do go to a zero below grade, but at grade, you do step back to allow for those maintenance situations.
Thank you. And a comment, as one of my colleagues said, the 6.2 FSI jumps out, obviously, if your baseline is 2.5. But I don't need to have an answer, but to me, it's always thinking about the context. Because 2.5 is average, as I understand it, for the corridor. And when the application is saying, well, we are seeking a site-specific. So if you look at comprehensively, not in one application, every application is asking for site-specific. So how would you balance the 2.5? I mean, so I just want to raise it as a comment. I'm sure planning professional would know how to figure that one out. On that note, I do have a question. I believe is actually in the slide 5 of the planner for the applicant. Would that be okay? I'm not asking questions really from him, but if you could show that, or maybe you don't need to show that. I remember vividly is talking about just south of this site. I remember the number is 8 to 24 stories. Maybe the question is to our staff, Mr. Chair. Are those 8 to 24 story with application in front of us, or is it actually up to 24 stories already at that location, south of this site? I just want to get a clarification. I think I saw that number. Am I not? Correct? Yeah. I saw some nodding, so I did see something right. To you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the counselor, I just want to be clear. You said south. I think you're referring to the north.
No, I believe the address is 9700, if I remember correctly. With the gas.
Okay, so the former gas.
9700.
To you, Mr. Mayor, the existing gas station site, yes, that's up to 24 stories on that site. 28. I apologize. 28.
That's an application. Is
That is an application.
Okay, that makes a difference. If it's an application, so I can see where the applicant's coming from. We are not asking anything. The adjacent site is not there. Now, I still have 59 seconds. It's also talking on page 10. North of this, 9750, 9760 is already, now maybe I should hold back the term. It's a proposed development. Correct, through Mr. Chair.
To clarify through you, Mr. Chair, immediately to the north is the site that holds the London pub right now. There is no application on that site, but further to the north of that, we have a proposal for a development with up to 24 stories.
Okay. Okay, got it. So again, I'm thinking about in terms of comments and context. So 24, 24, 24, like along the street. So I understand. And this is a fun part. Well, no, I shouldn't say fun, but it's really for a planning professional to use their expertise to provide advice to council on that. The last comment I will make is about, I believe is relating to a tree, if I'm correct. Yes, on page 9. I'm not going to comment on that other than just raising it. It's an issue that something to work out, regardless of what the final plan is between this applicant and next door neighbor on that tree. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for me to share those comments. And I think it's just the beginning of the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else want to speak on the first round? Okay, seeing none, I'll just make a few comments. So I think, as is typical at a council public meeting, this is an opportunity for us to see for the first time a development application. There are a number of issues that are all outlined in the staff report. I'm not going to go through them right now. I mean, there are technical issues that are going to need to be addressed before anything comes out the other end of the pipeline. So that needs to be done. I think, the height of the ultimate height of the building, whether it be it's being proposed, whether it be a little bit less, that's something that the staff can go through. I mean, the angular plane thing to me is a complete backstop. We're not really we would not typically be looking at piercing the angular plane. So as the agent for the applicant has said, that needs to be taken care of. So we'll look forward to seeing that dealt with. I think having a good mix with commercial on the ground floor is important. And I think the site needs to be, thought needs to be given so that the positioning and the size of those units can be successful in a commercial context. So I think that's important that the applicant does their homework. We want this building to be occupied from stem to stern. We want the commercial spaces to be occupied with really dynamic businesses, and the size and layout of those units need to be such that there's a good possibility that we'll be successful on that. The podium, I agree, is a little high. I think work needs to be done on that. I'm not an architect, but I know I've seen enough applications in this in the last number of years where we can come up with a creative solution to that. So I'll leave that to you guys and you guys to be dealing with. The final thing that has been mentioned here that needs to be clarified as we move through this process is the whole issue of affordability. I mean, we are in a situation now where we're looking to increase the stock of units that are more affordable for more people. A mix of unit size, some large, some small, but a number of them that we can offer to the public at a price point that maybe doesn't exist in Richmond Hill right now. We need to be able to accommodate more people in more income ranges. And a project like this has the potential to do it. And I can tell you right now, I will be looking for sure to be seeing a proposal that fits that category as well. So I'll leave that up to all of you folks to work all of that out. So that's about it. I guess the final thing is this is an important piece of Yonge Street, and we need an architecturally well-designed building that looks nice and adds to the amenity and the look of Yonge Street as you go up or down the hill on Yonge Street. So we'll leave that again to the architects to sharpen their crayons and make sure that everything looks really nice before we finally get the approval of this. So I think that'll be it for me for my comments. Thank you very much to the applicant and the agent for coming out tonight. I assume there's no other comments from council. So we have a motion before us to refer all of these comments back to staff. All those in favor of that? And that carries unanimously. And the last thing to do tonight, which is a lot of fun, is the motion to adjourn. Regional Local Councillor DePaulo and Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed? That was fun. Thank you very much. It carries unanimously.